Sachs in the Morning. Sports, money, life. Steve Sachs.
Welcome to Sachs in the Morning. I'm Steve Sachs, and I'm so glad that you've decided to share a little bit of your time with me. This program is really all about success. Success in sports, to be sure, but we'll also talk about success with money and success in life and how all three can really impact your dreams and your passion. My goal is to have you inspired, informed, entertained, and most certainly motivated to follow your emotional heart after every episode.
Hi, Steve Sachs here with Sachs in the Morning, and today is Thursday, the 19th of January. It's going to be a great day today because our long-form version today is going to be something really special with my very good friend from a long time ago when I first started with the Dodgers, Southern California native. This is Sean Salisbury, great NFL quarterback. Played with 5 NFL teams. He also played with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the CFL and did some amazing things. Was a great basketball player in college, was offered scholarships for basketball as well. This is a 3-sport star, but basically we're going to talk about other things today besides that as well. We're going to talk about personal struggle after sports. We're going to talk about the most incredible mentorship example that I've ever heard. I got to be honest with you folks, right? Look around the studio after this story we heard today, and our mouths were just open, and we couldn't believe what we just heard. But you're going to hear it today on Sachs in the Morning. Currently, a book is in motion, from what I understand. This is an incredible story that you're going to hear. So I want to bring on right now my good friend from long time ago. Here is Sean Salisbury. Welcome to Sachs in the Morning. And today we have a great guest on our Thursday long extended form interview. We got the great Sean Salisbury. Sean, I've known Sean a long time. In my first years when I was at Dodger Stadium playing there with the Dodgers, and Sean was at USC, and we were friends and still are friends to this day. Been a long time, Sean, but welcome to Sachs in the Morning. Good to be with you.
Actually, it's so great to be with you, brother. You still look like you got some eligibility left. I can throw like 5 passes. I just don't want to get hit, but I think I can get you stealing second, winning Rookie of the Year, and then you and I going and being in Mike Marshall's wedding and having a lot of laughs there too. I miss the good times, brother. It's been too long, but we'll pick up right where we left off. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on, man.
You as well, Sean. And man, I think about it's almost like a snapshot in time where remember we would hang out out there in the valley when we were both trying to forge our careers, and
That's right.
And now you look at it, so much has happened. We've had families, we've got kids, we've had bumps and bruises, and great things happen in our careers, and it's just incredible now how it is the brotherhood of professional sports. You in football and I was in baseball, but that doesn't matter. Isn't that locker room a real sanctuary for players?
It is, Saxy. And I still to this day, and I 100% agree with you. I think I've probably learned more of, I know what rock bottom looks like. And I think we all know, having been it, that we're fortunate, playing at SC and winning world championships and doing all those things with the Dodgers. We know what the penthouse looks like too. And overcoming, the difficult times, I think, has created a great space for me in my life and learning how to deal with it. Because at a young age, I didn't, it seemed like everything was easy. But those pitfalls you go through help you to get to points like this where you reemerge and be with friends you care about. And yeah, Steve, I don't think it matters, because you and Mike and the guys we were hanging around while I'm at USC and getting to go to Dodger Stadium, those are still some of the greatest memories I have of being able to watch you guys do what you did at the highest level. So the appreciation, but even more so than just you putting a bat on the ball and doing all the great things, is the laughs, the talk about locker rooms, watching families grow up. And I can vividly remember the laughs we have, where we were sitting for some of them in La Jolla when you were visiting your agent and watching. The things that I still think about, and the things I want to remember. And I'm so grateful that the friendships have lasted this long, and the friendships far out. I remember the friendships a lot longer than I do the throw or the curl route or your double up the gap. So there's no doubt it's special to me.
No question about it, Sean. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, you've touched on something really great about my podcast, which is it's all about overcoming adversity, being an example, mentorship, which we're going to get into in a little bit. The fact that you mentioned, bouncing off that wall of making mistakes and not being afraid to fail and those type of things. I mean, in your football career, you spanned 5 different NFL teams. You played in Winnipeg with the Blue Bombers in the CFL. You had an extensive career after having an unbelievable high school career as one of the best basketball players in the country, averaging nearly 27 points a game. You got a scholarship offer at USC and UCLA, probably more. But how did you decide, and how did you pick that, life-altering decisions at such a young age? And how important is that to get your life right early, because it sets the stage later?
So actually, it's such a great point, and I love doing stuff. We talk so much sports. I think people like it, want to know about life and what we've overcome, to realize that aside from the fact that we may do something better, they do something better than we do, and it's all relative to what we do. It just happens to be on TV and in a public format. But I'm going to tell you, I was a basketball and baseball guy first growing up, and I was recruited in both of those before football. I didn't even.
Wow.
I remember my freshman year at my high school, and this is honest to God truth, I could throw I at junior high, my junior high coach said, "You're going to play football. We're playing 11-on-11 flag football," where I learned how to read coverage. I never played Pop Warner. I didn't never put only pads I put on were those plastic helmets your parents would get you for Christmas.
Yeah, I had
that.
I
watched football and loved it and grew up a diehard Raider fan. So I got my freshman year. My dad said, "Why don't you just give it a try?" Because I said, I'm going to be a professional basketball player or baseball player. And those were my dreams, and got to high school. And those were my first scholarship offers. My first time in my locker room as a freshman, I didn't know how to put the thigh pads in. I put the long part closer to the groin, and it pinched. And my buddy sitting next to me goes, No, dude, you got to put the small part on the, it goes on the small, so you don't get pinched. And so I said, the big part's on the outside, the long part. And then we go out there, and my very first carry as a quarterback, we ran option. And here I am, a 6'5", 200-pound thrower. I thought as a freshman, I had a military coach, Coach Bice, awesome. I got hit, and my finger went to the ground off the ball, and I had a compound fracture. Bone popped out of the skin. My very first carry ever.
Wow.
I used to play tackle football in the park with my buddies. I said, "Oh, hell no." And
pocket passer.
That's right. I said, no. This is it. I went over to my coach, and just like this, and I said, "Coach, I hurt my finger." And he said, and I come from, my dad was 82nd Airborne, put a Band-Aid on it, that type of that back in the day. And so he said, "Get back in the huddle, Salisbury." And I said, "Coach, I think that's my bone." Oh. And on the sidelines, we had sandwich baggies of ice. No. And we didn't have cell phones, so I go over there and stick it in ice for 2 hours, the entire scrimmage. My mom and dad come pick me up afterwards because I went up to the office. Coach then took me to the office. I called him. My dad got off work. They came and got me like, "What happened?" "Well, that's my bone, Dad." "Okay, let's go to the doctor." The doctor says about 20 more minutes of the would have to cut it off because of the the dirt and ground. Right, we didn't do anything. And nowadays people would be,
20
sue them. Yeah, it'd be crazy. You own the high school now, right? But my dad said, put a cast on it, and I came back and played the last 2 games of that freshman year and fell in love with football. And that's how it happened. And people started coming for all 3 sports, and I chose football. And I'll tell you this, Saxy, one thing we don't do enough of.
Yeah.
I understand name, image, and likeness and transfer portal in sports and college, but the greatest thing that ever happened to me was knee surgeries to overcome those, because I went from being a guy who was going to be a first-round pick in football when I started there at SC, and then blew out and I'll backtrack in a second, but blew out my knee, to being a guy who had to be an undrafted free agent, learn how to make a team, and be guy as opposed to the guy. So from high school to doing it, I said, I'm never playing football again, to saying, okay, I'll play my freshman year to my finger, and then playing the rest of my career, all 3 sports, and choosing football because I wanted the ball in my hands every snap. And it turned out great, but we don't go through enough adversity. We don't let our youth go through enough of getting kicked in the teeth and overcoming it, because the greatest lessons in my life have been when I've done wrong or screwed up or had to learn a lesson than when I've done right. I don't want everybody to screw up, but there is lessons that can be learned, and messages can be sent like you're sending to others about overcoming it. It's okay. It's not a life sentence to screw up or to make a mistake. That's my point.
Two things about this is number one is you went from any team that you were going to go out for. It was a coronation. You were there. Right. You went from that to having to struggle to make the team and prove yourself again because of the injury. And secondly, how valid is it that you can just put a finger on it? No pun intended. But how you can just really validate what this podcast means when we talk about overcoming adversity, and really that failure is part of the sequence. It's like he says, it's not a death sentence. It's part of the sequence to being able to make it. Isn't that right?
I would agree. Just like I said, I don't know what it's like to be the first pick of the draft. I know what it's like to be an undrafted free agent and go through that. Just like if you're Troy Aikman, you may not know what it's like to be an undrafted free agent and love Troy and go through what somebody else went through. And, playing all the sports and learning competition, learning how to do it. And my old man, I didn't have an option. If I didn't want to play one sport, it was you better find something else to do. And I'm so great. I miss him, and I'm so grateful for the message. But you're exactly right. The process. See, I can't, honest to God, I can't remember stats from a game. I got a good memory, but I don't even think about those. But I do remember what rock bottom looked like. And I do remember building steps to get out of it. And I do remember driving in my truck thinking, I'm not going to make it through to tomorrow. And I do remember friends picking me up, or my dad saying, get your butt going. Your job is to go do 3 jobs if you're going to take care of your family. I do remember my son putting his arm around me when I was going. I remember those. Now, of course, we cherish the good times, but my foundation was not set by touchdown passes. Although for a long time, I think our identity, Sax, I don't know if it hit you, gets locked up into how many singles or doubles we can get, how many touchdown passes I threw. And then the shift, it's almost like a message sent. How are you going to handle this? And my proudest moments are a recent master's degree at 59 years old. My proudest moments are getting kicked in the teeth and wondering if I was going to be able to do what my dad always told me, that you get your butt up and you go face it and you deal with it. And you didn't get drafted, go congratulate your teammates and go make a team. And so all those things. And listen, there's people who have my story a million times over. But for me, my life was shaped by adversity more than it was shaped by, and you build a trampoline instead of a hole to fall into, and was able to build steps to get out of it with a lot of help.
Wow. Hey, your dad, just like my dad, was a huge inspiration in your life. It's from what I'm reading. I mean, I'm listening to you and the same way I think that I can relate to what you're saying, Sean, because if I didn't have my dad in my life, the tough German that, ruled the house sometimes with an iron fist, and you had to figure out why you got that whooping. As my dad was not a talker. He was a doer. And whatever the world threw at me wasn't as tough as my dad was. And so I kind of feel like your dad and my dad kind of went to the same college.
Oh, they're sitting in the same church, in the same church pew, Saxy. And it's interesting because, you growing up in that family, it was what's on the table. And my dad was nothing but love. My dad said more without saying anything than any man I've ever been around. And it was the option wasn't, are you going to do it? The option is you have no choice but to go earn a living for your family, overcome this. Nobody's going to stop and feel sorry for you. They may have a little compassion for a minute, but go. And he came from a blue collar background. But my dad's approach was that the hard work and the grind, it may not be fun, but it's going to be worth it. And I would not have known how to win. Now, my mother was a fantastic influence in my life. I was fortunate to have 2 parents that I pushed isn't the right word, encouraged, challenged me, and made sure I was on the right path growing up. But my dad, like you, Sax, my dad didn't need to say much. He didn't need to say much. I remember the one time I was playing a baseball game in Little League, and I was 9 years old playing up with the 12-year-olds, and I was pitching. The umpire wasn't calling strikes. And my mom was the talker. My dad was the quiet one who just, you knew when he said, and my dad was my best friend, but my dad was my father first and my best friend second. And I can remember walking off that field. I went into the dugout, slammed my glove against the mound, pulling your head off, pouting like a little baby is what I was doing at 9 years old. We walked out to that car. I can tell you exactly where in the street, the name of the street, and where we were. And my dad put his finger. This is about all he had to do. He put his finger in my chest. He's about 6'5", 265. He put his finger in my chest about 10 times and said, "Don't you ever embarrass your teammates or yourself or your family again. I don't care what the umpire says, what balls and strikes." And while it wasn't vicious, it was enough that I felt it and enough to send a valuable message. That's not the way we compete in this house. And he did it with love, but he did it with a loud message, and he didn't say much other than about 4 sentences of this and touch me. And from then on, I realized, because I don't know, Saxy, if I'd have been without my support of my family, I don't know if when I was faced with decisions that I made that were stupid, decisions that I made were good, I wouldn't have made good decisions had it not been for a mom and dad that had been through adversity and rock bottom themselves.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, I got to ask you, and I never met your dad, never met your mom, but I gotta say they probably were cut out of the same cloth, it sounds like. Now, I don't know how your dad was with your mom, but I can tell you what my dad was like with my mom, and is he treated her like Cleopatra. In as much as he was the toughest dude ever, he was jelly in her hands, because he thought and openly gushed how my mom was the most beautiful, most beautiful, gracious, loving woman that he's ever. And he was just a different person with my mom.
Agreed.
I'll bet your dad idolized your mom as
Oh,
well.
and my mother ran the show. My mother, until my dad finally gave her that look, like, because she was chattered, it's like, gave that look like, okay, I guess the King Richard is what everybody called my dad because he was so big. I guess he spoke and doesn't say anything, but you are exact. My dad, I always said, I'm sure there's a lot of families like that my dad was the way you're supposed to treat a wife and a woman and a mother. And my dad and mom always said, you guys are going to eventually get up and move out. We love you. But don't ever try to pit us against each other. And, when you're a 10-year-old, well, dad said this, mom said this, because we're always going to take each other's side. Because at some point in time, you're moving out and going to find your own wife, or your sister's going to find her own husband. Your dad and I aren't going anywhere, so we're under the same roof. So the rules were set and the standards. My dad was the epitome, and like yours, of how to treat. Put it this way: when my dad, people that I know would say, "Man, wouldn't it be great to be like your dad?" And still to this day, and I miss both my mom and dad who've passed away, is that I always felt like my dad set the standard so high, I had no shot to live up to the way he treated us kids as a father, the way he treated my mother. Oh, my mother was everything. Now, she was tough as 100-year-old leather, but my dad made sure my mother knew that. And my dad always said, if they're not success in the home, then you're probably falling shy of success in your life. And if nothing else, and my dad didn't earn $70,000 in a year in his life, Saxy.
What a
just
smart
grinded
man.
every day. Yep.
What a smart man. I mean, I wish I could have met your dad. I mean, he sounds like.
Well, I talked about you all the time. He between you and Mike and that group, I talked about you guys more than I talked about my own teammates. But so my dad actually, Saxy, and he grew up in my family, Dodger fans growing up. My cousins now, my mom and dad grew up Red Sox fans, but they became Dodger lovers because I always talk about you and Mike and Mike Marshall. And so you may not know them, but I got news for you. My family knows you in all the great stuff, and they love the fun stories and the great relationships and all those times I spent at Dodger Stadium watching you guys play.
Thanks, Sean. We had a lot of those. Hey, listen, I want to get to something. You and I could talk on the phone for about 6 hours and think, well, did we just start? So I can't wait till we get together in person again. But Sean, I got to ask you, in as much as you grew up, dad was a tough guy. I get that stuff. There's another side to you that I really, really like. I want you to tell us, I want you to enlighten us and let us be the recipient of such a great story. Is your Christmas Eve story on that Texas freeway. I want you to tell our audience about what happened and where you were in time. Were you in the midst of the divorce blues, or what was it at that time that turned you to this man? So you go ahead and talk, and I'm going to just shut up.
Well, I appreciate this, and I'm going to try to make a long story short, but I'd been divorced, and we were obviously amicable, and I screwed up more than most, so I take blame for all the stupid things I did. But my three kids who were my life, and I was in Dallas because I'm in Houston, but I was in Dallas visiting, have a new Christmas Eve with my children. The next day, they're going to spend it with their mom.
Okay.
And I can remember, and I had been through from the years about 2000, say 7 or 8, to when I lost my dad. The story, my rock bottom. I don't want to bore people with that, but my rock bottom. And so for about 6-7 year period, I stayed in. I didn't go out. You felt sorry for you. Went through the anger, all the different emotions you go through when you feel like, you're at the place where, what am I going to do next? And so I was finally getting out of this with some help from friends and saying enough and thinking about my family. And I'd lost my dad in 2007. My mother was still alive. And I know my dad would have been disappointed to watch how I reacted earlier about hitting rock bottom. He would have loved how I came out of it, right? Because he saw me go through the beginning of it, didn't see me come out of it. And I think he'd be pretty proud. But and a lot of it's because of my family. So I'm in Christmas Eve in Dallas, and I spent time with my kids. And the next morning, I was getting up to drive back to Houston because a family friends of mine were invited me to their Christmas dinner and to have Christmas with them. I said, great. So I'm driving that next morning on Christmas, and it's about 11 in the morning. And to paint the scene, I'm driving down I-45, about an hour outside of Dallas. And there's a guy, and it's probably 50 degrees, 55 degrees with the wind blowing. And there's a guy walking on the freeway alongside the freeway with a big old duffel bag. And I drive by him, and I'm in the fast lane. And I looked at him, and I thought, man, what a bummer on Christmas Day. I feel bad for him. And I kept driving. I was feeling sorry for my damn self because I wasn't with my kids. And I drove about a dozen miles, kept passing, and it just hit Sean, get your butt back there and give him some money. It's Christmas. Get out of your own fields and go to make a difference for what little one it would have been. I literally swerved to the slow lane to catch the next intersection, went over, came back, and the entire time, Saxy, I'm thinking, because I felt like I had compassion in my life, but you're like, okay, well, what's the next level of it? I need to get out of me. I need to immerse myself into something. And that's to jump ahead. To me, that's the number one thing. When you're going through difficult times, immerse yourself into serving somebody else. And it paid off. Well, I'm driving back, paid off for me and my just internally. And so I'm driving back, looking on the other side of the freeway, hoping, Saxy, that somebody else picks him up, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I go by him again, and he's still walking. I come around, go back about 4 more miles to the next intersection, come by and pull over my truck. And I roll down the window, and the wind's blowing, and I see him. He's a guy in his late 50s, early 60s. I could tell he'd aged. And I said, I held a $100 bill. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I held a $100 bill out, and I said, I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I hope you're okay. And I showed it to him, and he looked at it. He goes, are you sure? That's what he said to me. Well, he's walking. I said, yeah. And I rolled down the window. I gave it to him, put the car on drive, rolled the window back down after I had rolled it up. I said, where are you going? And he said, well, I'm going to Katy, Texas, which is a suburb, which I live in now, but was a suburb of where I was living 4 hours away, 3 hours from where I picked him up. I said, okay. I said, get in. And if you know what I'm thinking the whole time, so where am I going to drop him off at one of those truck stops on Christmas, give him a little more money, feed him, and let him shower up and do it. He throws it. I said, throw your duffel bag in the back. And I'm also thinking, well, is he a smoker? Am I going to have to drive a couple? And all the stupid things that are just go through when you're feeling sorry for yourself. Like I wanted it perfect for my drive home, right?
Did you worry about any safety, Sean?
I was much bigger than him, Sax. I wasn't worried that you know what? I guess that's part of it. I got out of my, I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. I was more on, it's Christmas. How can I help this guy?
Right.
And to do a good deed that, you know, when you're feeling sorry for your own self. So he throws it, pops in, and started a conversation. I could see he had about 4 teeth in his head. He'd been, it's a story, he'd been through drugs years ago, and he was separated from his family. I said, and I figured since I'm driving him, I want to know his story. I said, where are you coming from? He goes, I've walked 6 days from Missouri. I said, excuse me? I said, well, why are you going to Katy, Texas? He goes, because the bus inside the loop there, I can, you know, put my duffel bag down. I can go to Home Depot. I can get a job because the weather was warmer in Texas, obviously, than Missouri. And he said, so I can get day jobs and make some money. I said, oh, okay. So where do you sleep? He goes, I just put my sleeping bag under a tree or wherever I can. That's what I say. I said, for how long? Till the winter's over.
Oh.
I said, oh, okay. I said, well, what about your family? He goes, he had brothers and sisters. He was estranged from all of them. Didn't talk to any of them. And as we go on, I finally realized he has no birth certificate. He has no ID. He has no Social Security card. He knew his number. And we're talking, he starts to get into sports. Huge baseball St. Louis Cardinals fan. Oh. He had no idea who I was, which was fine. I didn't make a big deal. We're driving. And so I pull up to a hotel or a gas station. We go in. That's not the one I want to leave him at. Except telling me, keep driving. Drove about another hour and a half, and I pulled into a hotel, was going to give him money. This is about hour and a half outside of Houston. Katy, I said, does the bus go in here? Because I was new to Houston at the time. This was December of 2014. I had only been there a year. And they said, well, no, you got to go further in to get so he can drive the bus and loop, because he had no car. He had nothing, a duffel bag. And so we got into a story about the drug use, and he was clean. And so I get out there, and I'm going to drop him off in Katy, and we're driving. It's getting later in the day. And, you know, Saxy, said, just come with me. I'm going to take you down inside the loop to a hotel near where I worked and not far from my apartment at the time.
Hmm.
And I told the people at the front desk, I said, watch over him. I gave him money. I thought that he would like go up there, shower, sleep, and then leave. And the next day when I said, I'm coming back tomorrow to pick you up and take you to Katie. It's Christmas Day. I said, I'm going to call at 2:00 tomorrow. I answered the phone. I called the room. He answered the phone. I was shocked then. Said, I'm coming to get you. Well, the next day they had bowl games going on. And my friend who I spent Christmas with said, come on over and watch bowl games. Well, he didn't know I had picked up a homeless guy. So a gentleman, his name's Russell Bursett. And I go get him I call him. He's there. I come get him. We go right to my friend's house to watch games. And I said, no alcohol, nothing with my friend. So we ate, had a good time. 11 o'clock that night, I'm thinking, okay, now I got to take him to Katie. We left. I was tired. I said, just come and stay at my place.
Oh,
I live alone. 16 months later, Saxy, you got full head of teeth. My kids became friends with him because we'd go see them the next year's Christmas. We got his ID, job, driver's license, and Social Security card. For 16 months, he stayed with me. We became great friends. He reconciled with his family. Gosh. And I learned a lot about compassion. And it's emotional to me because everybody says, well, you changed. What were you doing? The guy could have killed. I said, I didn't even think about that. I thought about how I can immerse myself into this. And 16 months later, it wasn't me who changed his life. It was him who really changed mine and his family. I stayed in touch with them, and he went back to Missouri, got a job, and I couldn't be more proud of him. And my kids loved him. He was just a good man. And so I'll never forget it. And I learned a valuable lesson that day about compassion that I thought I had, and I wasn't even anywhere close to having it. So while it's a long story, there's more to it, but he was, I had 2 weeks later, I had to leave and go to the Super Bowl for my radio station. And you know what I did? I left him the keys to my vehicle. I'd only known him 2 weeks. I left cash there, and I left things out just to see if it was in place when I came back. I came back and nothing was moved. He ate. Everything was clean. The truck wasn't driven. He did anything, and we forged a friendship. And I learned right then about trust as well. And to this day, it's something that I'll never forget. And that's exactly the story. And there is no cutting corners. It's 16 months later. That is it. That is how we spent Christmas with kids, and we'd eat meals. We'd stay up till 1:00 in the morning watching, the baseball package on TV. He would talk about. I'd say, well, my best friend from college was Mike Shannon's son, Tim Shannon, who you've met him, Saxy, through me a couple times coming to Dodger Stadium. So it was weird how the crossover, and he's a great historian, and we forged that friendship, and it was I watched the transformation, and it was really cool to see his life change and for him to get back and be with his family. And that's the story, and I'll never forget it. And he became a friend.
I can only tell you that this is
I didn't mean to keep you so long, man. I apologize.
Oh my gosh, you give me. I bless you for telling us this story. I'm looking around here between Max and Jeff, and we're just sitting here with our jaws hanging. We can't believe what we just heard.
Well, Saxy, also thank you. And you know what? And I don't tell the story, and thank you for allowing it. I didn't even know we were going there, but when people ask the story, it was never for me. It was to tell people that homeless folks are not what you just think they are, that somebody's sitting under a bridge panhandling for money. They're the person sitting next to you in a coffee shop. They're the person that you're riding the bus with, or that are walking down the street that you don't know, they don't want you to know. Because I can tell you, because you don't know this either, when I hit my deepest rock bottom, I slept in a truck about 100 nights a year. I'd pull into a hotel parking. Nobody knows. Very, very few people know the story. And I'd park my truck in a hotel parking lot, and because I wanted to make sure my kids were in school and they had everything. And I'd keep the engine on the outdoor parking lot, so it was cold, and I would keep the engine on so I could fall asleep before I was able to get my next day going, because I needed to save every penny I could for kids and to pay for whatever I needed to pay for. And when I finally got back on my feet and was now back to where you're earning a great living and loving, you got a home again, for the first 2 or 3 years of that, I still a couple times a year would go sleep in my truck to remind myself that I'm never, ever, ever going to take for granted when you're at the top what rock bottom looks like. And I know the view from both, and the view from the top's better. But the thing is, when you're at the top, the fall happens a lot quicker than the climb. But now you grab people along and do your best to bring them with you. So, things change, and we all go through this. And my story is not much different than anybody else's. But I guess I had the guts and the good, the good Lord on my side that day to pick Russell up. And I didn't do it for him to pay me back anything. I did it because I needed it. And in turn, two lives changed, and which was a good thing.
Sean, I'll tell you something right now. The whole world needs to hear this story. There's no question that this is a personality, life altering, obviously, thing that you've done. But I think it could change the way people look at the world just by hearing this story. And Sean, this is to me, this is clearly an act of God working within you that was bestowed upon somebody else. And I'm sure, I don't know, what Russell talks about, but I'm sure you guys have probably had a conversation about that.
Yep, you pay it forward, man. And that's the thing. And even with buddies of mine that watched this go on, that became friends from work when I got back into my job, and when you're thriving again, but I never I never quit counting the blessings of going through what I went through. At the time you're going through it, you think, man, this sucks. Woe is me. But I now, when you say a prayer and when people are going through it, when you're talking to yourself, it's like, man, I'm so grateful I went through, what I did to help him and him help me, and get great help along the way. We all need somebody to lean on. And, but when people ask me all the time, how'd you get through it? To go what I said earlier, Saxon, it's still today when we all go through one of those days, I have immersed myself into somebody else, not immerse myself into their business, try to immerse myself into their service. And I know that sounds cheesy and elementary, but for me, it works for me. And when people are going through it, I always say, do something for somebody else, and you'll realize just how lucky you got it. And I've had the greatest life in the world. There was about a 5 or 6 year period where you lose everything, including your dad, your home, and then you rebuild. And I'm more proud now of this, and more proud of this than any touchdown pass ever. And it's not even a prideful proud. It's a proud that that you were able to actually come out of it, and hopefully along the way touch some other lives.
Tell our audience how important it is to experience adversity.
I think it's the most important thing we do. Now, here's the thing, Saxon, this, hell, with kids, I don't ever want my kids to go through trouble. We all want to protect them from it. Sure. Teammates, kids, friends, family, wives, girlfriends, of course, we want to protect them from it, but it's inevitable. Now, I don't know what everybody's rock bottom. Somebody's rock bottom may just mean they got beat in a championship game. Other people's rock bottom may be they slept in their truck, or were homeless, or lost a family member, or lost a job, or lost a home, whatever that might be. And for me, about 5 of those stressors came within 14 months at the same time. So you're like, I can handle one, and I was a quarterback and could handle pressure there, but can I handle some of these life pressures? And I think it's hugely important. You don't wish it on anybody, but when you're going through it, like I said, and this isn't to get on the guys in college who transfer and all that. For me, it's okay to be there for people, but to watch them, because the greatest transformation in their life isn't going to be from some diet. It's not going to be from a haircut. Those are all great things. The greatest transformation in my life, and I would imagine in many that I've talked to as I went through my story and now give motivational speeches or go to companies and talk about it, is that the greatest lessons learned are once you've been hit in the mouth and know how to get back up. And I don't mean literally. It's like, oh, okay. And you become, I don't know, calloused to it, not hardened. Hardened's a bad thing. Calloused to the point to say, I can handle this, because I wish I could say that my kids are never going to, they've already been, you change a job, you move, a girlfriend breaks up with you, or your boyfriend, those things, whatever that level is on somebody's life. I don't know if there's anything more important. Yeah. Great friends, great family, and a little adversity
from others, right, Sean? Yeah. You alluded to the support from your father and your mom.
Right.
That support from others has got to be critical in the whole scheme.
And friends that you can lean on and share with, that don't judge when you're going through your times.
Yes.
Because inevitably you judge, And the old saying, the same things that make you laugh will make you cry. I
Mm.
lived it. And the only reason I can speak from this experience is because I felt the day away. I can't get through the next day. You pick yourself up. It's like a great lesson in the sport I played in football, and Sax, you went through it. It's crazy. You pick yourself up, you get the hell kicked out of you, and you pick yourself up and go do it again 40 seconds later. Life,
Yeah.
the parallels for me, sports helped me, family, some close friends, the circle, and then not being afraid to be transparent and share your story. Because if it's one you say, along the way that changes their life, whatever that might be, that they become a better parent, that they get a job because you gave them a recommendation, whatever it might be. I don't think that when you go through it, when you're done coming out the other side, I don't remember now, after having been through it and now back in a good position again, taking it for granted. I don't, but is going back and saying, yeah, man, I can remember when I was at that time when I had money and could travel and was flying first class that time. I don't remember that being the reason that I felt like I was strong enough to get through it. It was when you got knocked around and the standing 8 count and to be able to get up, but I sure as hell couldn't have done it alone. I can tell you that. And support from family and friends was important.
Yeah, Sean, this is just amazing what you've this is a life changer. Your story is incredible. A book should be written about this big time.
Working on it, Saxy, and it's not for me. It's for others, just so somebody can pick it up. The feel good stories, right? There you go. There you go. Because nobody cares about my touchdown pass or the 4 that I threw. I threw plenty of interceptions. To be able to understand what this is.
My friend, we all know that. But John, it's interesting too, because next week we're going to be talking about adaptation, being able to adapt and different things. And there's a million stories. We have that. One of the things we're going to talk about is the great Doris Day, the actress who who shattered her leg in a car accident, and she was a dancer. And so in her time where she was convalescing and learning how to get herself so she could even walk, let alone dance, he began this thing about practicing singing. And how many gold records did she make? So sometimes I think the Lord will throw at you obstacles or opportunities that are dressed up as an obstacle.
That is
none more than you're talking about today.
Put that on a shirt, Saxy, because it is so true. And I'm an old school black and white glass bottom boat movies. I mean, so when you say Doris Day, I'll sit and watch 4 movies from Doris Day and Danny
Grant.
Kaye, the dance, yes, I'm a Elvis Presley on the beach, every single, I'm a fanatic. So what a great podcast that will be as you guys discuss adaptation. And you're exactly right. Opportunity is always dressed up as obstacle. It really is.
I agree. Sean, listen, we could go on for, I could talk to you.
Well, now that I've screwed up your podcast for 3 weeks because of the time I used, but thanks, brother.
Are you kidding me? I loved it. We loved having you on. We could ask you another 200 questions, but we don't want to usurp your time. But Sean, I'm looking forward to seeing you. We got to make sure we get together soon. I'd love to give you a hug and just let's have lunch or dinner or whatever. And by the way, let me ask you, how's Russell doing right now?
He's doing good, man. He went back and was working and reconciled with family. And nice. I try not to bug him because there's times I want to chase him down and say, I'm coming to Missouri. Let's go to a football game or a Cardinals game, which will happen. But he's doing well. And like I said, he became part of my family. And so, it's a great story for me, Saxy, that I got to the way he touched my life. And he was a stubborn, we'd battle in good ways, and every now and then you got to chew each other out, and along the way, the friendship was developed, and hopefully life changing for him, because I know it was for me. And I couldn't be more honored to be on with you, brother. It's great. It's amazing how time travels, but great friendships never go away. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Sean, thank you so much for having us, and our audience is going to love this. So
you're the best,
appreciate
brother.
it, Sean, so much, and we'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Look forward to it. I love you, man. Thank you, Saxy.
Love you, Sean. Right. Thank you, buddy.
You too.
If you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share the program. Also, be sure to listen to my Sax in the Morning shorts 3 days a week for a couple of minutes of uplifting suggestions to get your day off to a great start. Our music is performed by my adorable niece, Elena Jane. And remember, to reach your goals and your dreams, follow your emotional heart.